Hello and welcome back to another Magic the Gathering EDH deck tech idea. Today we are looking at Kykar, Zephyr Awakener. It is a 4 mana 3/4 flying bird, and whenever you cast a non-creature spell, choose one. Either exile another target creature you control, return that card to the battlefield under its owner's controller at the beginning of the next end step, or you can create a 1/1 white spirit creature token with flying. This Azorius Flicker deck will focus on generating a lot of value by flickering small value pieces over and over again, until we have either found all of our combo pieces, or have generated an army of tokens that we can overrun our opponents with. The idea behind this deck is to bring out Kykar as fast as possible and a few other value pieces that have powerful ETB triggers, and from then on either control the game, focus on controlling the board, or firing off a small few cantrips to keep triggering Kykar over and over again to flicker our value pieces. For example, we want to flicker Beza, the Bounding Spring, a 4 mana 4/5, and when it enters, create a treasure token. If an opponent controls more lands than you gain 4 life if an opponent has more life than you, or you create 2 1/1 blue fish creature tokens if an opponent controls more creatures than you, and last but not least, draw a card if an opponent has more cards in hand than you. Especially on Commander, Beza can be really powerful, and if it keeps re-entering over and over again, it also represents a bunch of value. A little bit smaller is Helpful Hunter, a 2 mana 1/1, and when it enters the battlefield, draw a card. This is a great early drop and always a valuable flicker target, simply because at least by flickering this creature card you will replace the card that you used to trigger Kykar, so there is a certain chance that you won't run out of gas. We play Solemn Simulacrum, a 4 mana 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield, search your library for a basic land card, put it onto the battlefield tapped and then shuffle, and when it dies you may draw a card. Even though I personally don't like Solemn Simulacrum that much anymore, simply because it is a 4 mana creature, it can still represent a bunch of value if you keep flickering it over and over again, simply because we are in Azorius colors and cannot ramp that easily by ourselves. So having a little bit of help is really nice. We play Muldrifter, a 5 mana 2/2 with flying, and when it enters the battlefield you draw 2 cards. You can also evoke this creature for 3 mana, but then you will also get a sacrifice trigger for it onto the stack. It is a common line of play to evoke this creature, and with the sacrifice trigger on the stack you just flicker it to create a new instance of Muldrifter, which will stay on the battlefield and give you another ETB trigger to draw 2 cards. We play Circuit Mender, a 3 mana 2/3, and when it enters the battlefield you gain 2 life, and when it leaves the battlefield you draw a card. Its second triggered ability cares about leaving the battlefield, so it will also trigger when we flicker it. To be able to interact with the board we play Skyclave Apparition, a 3 mana 2/2, and when it enters the battlefield exile up to 1 target non-land, non-token permanent you don't control with converted mana cost 4 or less. When it leaves the battlefield, the exiled card's owner create an XX blue illusion creature token, where X is the converted mana cost of the exiled card. If we keep flickering this card over and over again, we will create a bunch of blue illusions, but it is still a great way of interacting with our opponent's boards and getting rid of a few key pieces from our opponents. We cannot only rely on flickering our creatures by Kykar, so we also play Cloud Shift, a 1 mana instant, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under your control. We play Essence Flux, a 1 mana blue instant, exile target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. If it's a spirit, put a 1/1 counter on it. We play Ephemerate, a 1 mana instant, exile target creature you control, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. It also has rebound, so you can cast it again in your next upkeep. We play Planar Incision, a 2 mana instant, exile target artifact or creature, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control with a +1/+1 counter on it. We play Flicker of Fate, a 2 mana instant, exile target creature or enchantment, then return it to the battlefield under its owner's control. Last but not least, we also bring Soul Herder onto the battlefield, a 3 mana 1/1, and whenever a creature is exiled from the battlefield, put a 1/1 counter on Soul Herder. At the beginning of your end step, you may exile another target creature you control, then return that card to the battlefield under its owner's control. And now let's talk about a few small cantrips that can provide a little bit of value and also trigger Kykar. We play Peak, a 1 mana blue instant, look at target player's hand and you draw a card. So this card basically replaces itself at instant speed and you can get a lot of insight from one of your opponent's hands. We play Consider, a 1 mana instant, you surveil 1 and draw a card. We play Opt, a 1 mana blue instant, you scry 1 and draw a card. We play Preordain, a 1 mana sorcery, scry 2 and then draw a card. Serum Visions, 1 mana sorcery, draw a card and scry 2. And if we want to play those cards at instant speed, we also play Quicken, a 1 mana instant, the next sorcery spell you cast this turn can be cast as though it had flash and you draw a card. Once we got our value train going, we wanna control the stack, so we play a bunch of counterspells. We play Swan Song, a 1 mana instant, counter target enchantment, instant or sorcery spell and its controller creates a 2/2 blood creature token with flying. We play the original counterspell, a 2 mana instant, counter target spell. An offer you can't refuse, a 1 mana instant, counter target non-creature spell and its controller creates true treasure tokens. We play Negate, a 2 mana instant, counter target non-creature spell. Miscast, a 1 mana instant, counter target instant or sorcery spell unless its controller pays 3, and also Dovin's Veto, a 2 mana instant, this spell can't be countered and counter target non-creature spell. You want to win more? You get it. We play Abdel Adrian, Gorian's Ward, a 5 mana 4/4, and when it enters the battlefield, exile any number of other non-land permanents you control until Abdel Adrian leaves the battlefield. Create a 1/1 white soldier creature token for each permanent exiled this way. Abdel Adrian is a combo piece for a bunch of infinite combos, but he can also be played in a more casual way in this deck, simply by exiling all of your value pieces under him to make even more tokens, and then flickering him again to get even more ETB triggers and get his ETB trigger again too. We play Overlord of the Mistmoors, a 7 mana 6/6 with Impending for 4, and when it enters or attacks, create 2 2/1 white insect creature tokens with flying. This card is one of the reasons why Flicker of Fate is in this deck, simply because you can impend it for 4 mana, and then flicker it with Flicker of Fate to get it as its creature side, to keep swinging and also flickering it, to create an army of 2/1 white insect creature tokens with flying. Last but not least, we play one of the cutest cards in this deck, it's Preston the Vanisher, a 4 mana 2/5, and whenever another non-token creature enters the battlefield under your control, if it wasn't cast, create a token that's a copy of that creature, except it's a 0/1 white illusion. You can also pay 2 mana and sacrifice 5 illusions to exile target non-land permanent. Preston loves to be played in flicker decks to get his triggered ability over and over again, and he can also be used as a powerful removal piece. As he doesn't only exile, he also cares about non-land permanents, so he can answer mostly everything. Alright guys, these were a few cards that I would play in Kykar, Zephyr, Awakener. Let me know which cards you would add to the deck, which legendary creature I shall feature next. Make sure to check out my full deck list in the notes below, and then I would say see you in the next one. Goodbye guys.